Welcome to Between the Sheets, the non-judgmental podcast where we're going to cover various sexual health and wellness topics. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Zwonitzer. I'm a urology and sexual health nurse practitioner, and I love helping my patients and listeners discover and develop their most satisfying sexual experiences. Between the Sheets is here to normalize the conversations about sexual health and cover everything from basic anatomy to the most taboo topics and everything in between. Real talk, real pleasure, one episode at a time. So come on, let's get between the sheets. This episode is sponsored by Boston Scientific and its educational website on erectile dysfunction, edcure.com. One study estimated that more than 50% of men over the age of 40 have some degree of erectile dysfunction, which can be frustrating and confusing. Go to edcure.com to find information on erectile dysfunction and treatment options, including long-term treatment options offered by Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not endorse any statements or opinions expressed during this episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Between the Sheets. I am excited for today. You know, one of my favorite topics is women's health and the menopause movement right now and all of these good things to keep us sexy and healthy as we go through life. And I have one of the co-founders of AquaFit here today. And so I am really excited so that we can divulge into this conversation of having really comfortable, pleasurable sexual activity without putting ourselves at increased risk of UTIs or other vaginal infections. So welcome, Rebecca Sternberg from AquaFit. We're going to have a great conversation today. Yes, thank you so much. So tell me and the listeners a little bit about AquaFit and how it came to be.
Wonderful. So first of all, because this is recorded, you will see the show and tell, but we are going to talk through it.
Yes.
So AquaFit was founded by 3 women. All of us were founded it or co-founded it when we were near menopause. Some of us were already in menopause. And so this means that we had been through all stages of sexual wellness. We've been young, we've been postpartum. I had cervical cancer, which was part of the reasons why we started this. I received pelvic radiation and menopause. And this is really important because we think that this company could not have been founded if we were younger. And all of us really didn't know a whole lot about intimate wellness and well-being until I hit a brick wall. So I'm a strategic designer, and I received a lot of pelvic radiation for cervical cancer a decade ago. So women, make sure to check your PAPs because mine was a false negative. So this is really important.
Okay.
And I got extremely good medical care, but upon my release, I was told that I have to use a dilator and my sex life depends on it in order to prevent adhesions. A dilator is made out of silicone or plastic. It tends to be a little bit flexible, but not really. And you have to use a gel on it in order to prevent adhesions. And I went to my amazing doctor and I said to him, no, this is like, there's no way I'm going to use this. It's horrible. You inserted into one of your orifices. I'm not about to use this. And he said, no, go home. Maybe you'll like it. And I did, and I didn't. And so we started really with trying to solve one problem, which is how to make a better dilator. And it doesn't matter if it's a vibrator or or anything else, how to do this. And it's how we did it that brought us central to intimate well-being and vaginal health. So the first thing we did is we moved from a rigid plastic to what we call an intimate gel stick. It's literally a gel and a stick. So it is a hydrogel, very similar to technologies like contact lenses. And it is 90% water and 10% active agents. And the first thing we did, as a viewer, you can see, its surface area is soft because it's managing water at its surface area. And we ask a woman to go into the shower or use it in bed, which she can't do with anything else, really. And to activate the self-lubrication. And if this is the vagina, I'm holding up my palm of my hand, you press at the base and the muscles press back. Press at the base and the muscles press back. In doing so, we solve the issue of dilation or working the pelvic floor. And no one, including us, really knew that the pelvic floor is so critical for everything having to do with having sex, withholding our organs, with preventing prolapse. And if you see my hand, it's actually touching the vaginal tissue and lubricating it and balancing vaginal pH. And suddenly
Okay.
we realized, wow, we've got this new interface for the vagina, which allows a woman without really any deep understanding to engage herself in the comfort of her own home and really get one of all three issues are central for vaginal health. And we'll talk about them in a second. And you as a
Mhm.
urologist know this even better than us, but really coming at it from a usability perspective that a
Mhm.
woman not feel any pain. So our first product was AquaFit Prey, and its active agent is hyaluronic acid. It's a large molecule. And what it's doing is it's really filling in the cracks in a dry vagina. It's been shown to be as effective as local estrogen in terms of dryness. So this has been
Okay.
clinically proven. That's why you'll see lots of Bonafide also has a lactic acid suppository, a
Yeah.
hyaluronic acid suppository. And when we went to market, the first women that we started working with doctors
Mhm.
were young women with vaginismus. That's an involuntary muscle
Mhm.
contraction. It's about 20% of women, although a lot of them don't report it. And in the US, we're seeing rises. We've been out in the market for about 4 years. And we've seen that college campuses now, young men are watching a lot of porn, and the first
Mhm.
sexual experience for women is a little bit of choking or overzealous men.
Yes.
And if you have pain the first time, then your vaginal muscles contract and they're at the beginning of their sex life. And we've had incredible success because young women who have vaginismus are given the same painful dilator that I was given. And within 6 to 9 weeks, if a woman works with AquaFit Intimate, she will regain control because it
Mm.
is a mind vagina axis.
Mhm.
And she will only come back to us postpartum. Second group of women is women postpartum. So either a vaginal delivery, a woman will have elongation of
Mhm.
the vaginal muscles, pelvic floor muscles, or she might be have an episiotomy stitched up a little bit too tight. In both cases in the US, there really is very limited postpartum care.
Yeah.
And part of postpartum care is actually addressing both the muscle trauma, it's a big thing, really
Yes.
literally. Second thing is obviously the beginning, and this already comes to your area of low estrogen. So
Mhm.
women postpartum will be more susceptible to urinary tract infections, itching, burning, discharge, especially if they're breastfeeding. So that was the second
Sure.
group. And then we get to the third group, which is really two groups combined.
Mhm.
Every woman in menopause, healthy women will have lower estrogen. Even if they're taking systemic estrogen or even local estrogen, the rates are really low. She will experience dryness, irritation, changes in the microbiome, painful sex, although a lot of women don't like to lead with that
Yeah.
because of atrophy. And for those women, same. So you do speak to women completely differently,
Mhm.
but you speak to each based on their key pain point. And
Yes.
along the way, we also met many women recovering from breast cancer.
Mhm.
They life-saving hormonal therapies are really 2/3 of women are estrogen-based cancers. This is blocking estrogen in the breasts and
Mhm.
saving their lives, but it's also killing their sex life.
Mhm.
And this group of women who've become super users were the ones to introduce us to our second product, which has a really synergy with what you do. The women with breast cancer and also the women postpartum were reporting that they had less UTIs and less infections. And it's not the hyaluronic acid. So we went back to Vered, our chemist, and they said, well, what's going on? She said, I put a little natural preservative in
Mm.
this lactic acid. It's probably that. And that led to our second product called AquaFit Bio, which is so dumb. It's really revolutionary. What is it doing? It is releasing lactic acid into the vagina. It's doing this in 5 to 7 minutes of intimate training. That means that if a woman's protective acidity, which is really what's protecting us against anaerobic bacteria and viruses, it's also related to fertility. We have a lot of endometriosis users because
Sure.
it's only recently been discovered that endometriosis is actually a microbial issue.
Mm.
All we're doing is in 5 to 7 minutes in the shower, for 2 weeks, we are rebalancing pH. So if you are basic, above 5, so let's say you're 7, if you're taking an antidepressant, or if you're in menopause, we will bring you back to the norm of 3.8 to 4.5. And what this means at the end of these 2 weeks is without antibiotics and without probiotics, which are often hit or miss, because if you don't have enough estrogen, then the active probiotics have no environment. The acidity is lowering irritation and allowing microbial health. And this is so important for women in menopause for UTIs. And the discussion is not if it's in menopause, hormones are a cure-all or not cure-all. The truth of the matter is that it's a very delicate system. The estrogen is feeding lactobacillus, and the lactobacillus are excreting lactic acid. And this acidity, if it's not maintained, then we will have UTIs. So that's basically our product story. But our real story is that we speak with each of these women. So women who are approaching us who feel uncomfortable, they'll type in Google experiencing painful sex or dryness or recurrent UTIs. They will either speak to a doctor, our doctor, or us. And for the first time, they're getting an acquiescence that intimate wellness is something that she can do something with herself so that she doesn't experience pain. So that's basically our story.
I love that. I love that. And how did the three of you come together to make this product? Did you know each other previously?
So interesting. So no, and tangentially. Basically, I was looking for, in my recovery post-cancer, I used to be a triathlete and I really wanted to do a triathlon post, but I didn't feel like doing the whole thing. So I was looking for a threesome. So that's how I met Barrett. My niece did the swimming and Varda did the biking, and we took first place, obviously.
Yay!
And she got to asking, well, what am I doing? And I said, look, I've been doing all of this tech work, etc. But I really had this life-changing experience, and I didn't realize that intimate wellness is in this state, right? 10 years ago. And I said, well, I'm thinking about doing a startup in this area. And she said, well, I had a horrible time postpartum. I was stitched up too tight and I couldn't have sex for like 8 months. And really, I wish I had something that could help me. So that was partner number one. Vered, who's chemist, she was working with a company that I was consulting for, a 3D printing company. And she was a little bit more liquid because they were bought. So they were bought by Stratasys, and she had a little time on her hand. And I said, well, will you join us for this escapade? So that was, we were the first three. We were really lucky at the time. We founded the company in 2018. And we did the research and development, took us about the end of 18. And then we released the product during COVID. But we got a little bit of government funding at the time. There was this sort of pro women's research. Didn't last long. And then we got matching funding from the Case for Her, which is an amazing organization in Sweden, which is supporting out-of-the-box, hands-on solutions for women.
Amazing. Amazing. I love this discussion because there are so many phases as women that we go through. And when you're younger, you're not taught this stuff. You're not taught that, postpartum, you're going to feel so different, not just because you're healing, but because of the hormonal changes and stuff, especially if you're breastfeeding. You're not taught about, nobody even knows about vaginismus. I didn't know about it till I was in the urology world. So these topics don't come out. Menopause right now is having its golden moment and people are finally starting to talk about it, but that hasn't been the case. And certainly with both radiation patients for cancer and breast cancer patients who are taking the hormonal therapies, there's huge changes. So I love this so much.
And I would say, first of all, that we too, I'm embarrassed to say I'm pretty well educated, and we too didn't really know very much. And so what's interesting about what we're trying to do is not start with top-heavy explanations, right? But really get women to engage themselves and feel better. And so even if a woman, let's start with a young woman, and go through all the categories. A young
Yeah.
woman who has a vaginismus. And she doesn't believe that she can do anything. She can't insert a finger. She can't insert a tampon or a menstrual cup. She certainly can't have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And even if she engages the gel stick, just at the vaginal opening, very, very gently at the beginning, she will already within a week or 2 weeks, because she has estrogen,
Mm-hmm.
be able to sort of regain control.
Yeah.
Postpartum, as you said, it's really, there's so much money going into IVF and fertility,
Mm-hmm.
and so little going into sexual wellness and intimate care postpartum.
Yeah.
And if it's not addressed, then it really, we see women in their 60s who are still complaining about issues that emerged postpartum.
Yes.
We're also seeing very different approaches in different geographies. France is really pro postpartum care. We see that because we're selling a lot to France.
Okay.
So we know who they are. Doesn't matter what kind of delivery you've had, you will
Mm-hmm.
get physical pelvic floor therapist as part of your recovery. And menopause, I have to say that while it's getting its day,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, it's highly medicalized.
Yes.
And the conversation of sexual health is actually not on there. I mean, we
Absolutely.
participated in a McKinsey conference, and every problem was out there except for incontinence, urinary tract
Yep.
infections, sexual pain. And so I think that the issues, because we don't address vaginal health or intimate wellness, and urology has such an interface with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? As women, right, we were taught from age 2 to step up at the sink and brush our teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, not a big deal. It is self-care. And also self-care is so poo-pooed. Like, why should you take care of yourself? Well,
Right. Yeah.
because no one else is. So this notion of explaining to women is going to have to come through our generation,
Mm.
and also through, I think, enabling women and
Mm-hmm.
also the people serving women, right? I don't
Yes.
know, like most healthcare providers also don't, gynecologists don't really know much about the microbiome and don't
Right.
really know about UTIs and don't really know about the relationship of the pelvic floor
Mhm.
to even 250 million women have prolapses because
Yep.
no one is acquiescing that this is a muscle. So
Yes.
I would say that what's interesting today is that if we were not in an environment in which search is available,
Mm-hmm.
we would not be able to see and actually reach women. So what we're doing is, we, on a very limited budget, like shoestring, we're actually the plastic that's covering the edge of the shoe. Right? Um, but we went to market really understanding what the key concerns are when you're young. So it's
Mm-hmm.
vaginismus or endometriosis,
Mm-hmm.
and then postpartum,
Mm-hmm.
post recovery from cancer, and menopausal. And women don't like to be fed advertisements. They like to be looking for information.
Mm-hmm.
And they are looking for information.
Yeah.
The most search terms on Google are actually in your space: irritation,
Mm-hmm.
burning, discharge, incontinence. It's not so
Yep.
really pain-free sex. The other thing is that it's true that intimate wellness, like, we're born with vaginas and die with vaginas, right? It changes a lot across our different ages.
Mm-hmm.
But women will reach out at a position of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And this issue of pain is a very, very potent driver for behavioral change. And
Yeah.
so 70% of our work is direct to women. 30% we work with amazing healthcare teams who can be urologists, can
Mm-hmm.
be gynecologists, can be nurses in the cancer ward, but
Mm-hmm.
also can be pelvic floor therapists
Yep.
and primary care physicians.
Mm-hmm.
And we always get the women that they don't really want to speak with, because these women are on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Right? And so we feel like we're in this Almodovar movie of, like, everybody's on a verge of a nervous breakdown, and you can do things for yourself, right?
Yeah, I love this. So it's interesting in the perimenopause area, I will have women come in and see me in the urology office for incontinence, for new onset of frequency and urgency, and a little bit of a smell down there. I'm a little different than I used to be. And as soon as I start saying, well, this is because you're in the area of menopause, it's called the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. And they're just like, what? Like, why has no one brought this up to me? I had no idea that this was hormonally related and expected, essentially. Um, and they're thinking something is completely failing. So I love vaginal estrogen, pelvic floor physical therapy, lots and lots of education. And now, this AquaFit can be another
Yes,
tool that I can use, which is fabulous. But
absolutely.
it is.
And
And
I would even say there, first of all, that first of all, it's great that they're coming to you,
yeah.
right? Because most women won't even do that. But
Yeah.
I think that even in the perimenopause and in the hormonal space, even if you are taking estrogen, you do need to um, make sure you're working the pelvic floor muscles.
Yes.
And I think that what we're trying to do, especially with the BO, which we will send you a kit
Thank you.
at the end of this session, but it's all together. So for instance, the urgency is probably because she has dysbiosis and
Hmm.
there's infection brewing, or it's just irritation. The
Yes.
incontinence is the pelvic floor muscle, right?
Hmm.
And what we're trying to do is say it's probably not either or, it's probably everything. And you
Yes.
know what? Probably because you have lower estrogen, you have a little bit of vaginal dryness. And
Yep.
so we're seeing the perimenopause women very similar to actually the breast cancer
Hmm.
younger women. Their estrogen is not zero,
Yes.
right? They haven't been in a no estrogen state. And it's the best time to catch them and
Hmm.
really make them aware of the triad, right? You
Yes.
have to have hydration because the vaginal environment needs a certain level of hydration, which is critical for the microbiome. You have to have a balanced environment, which
Yes.
means really, and this is why I come back and say our approach is really very dumb, right? I don't really care what your microbial makeup is, right? You can go for very special testing and you can find out exactly what you have or what you have. You can also go for a very simple pH test, right? It's $10 on Amazon. It's a little litmus test and you can see if you're balanced or imbalanced.
Hmm.
All we're doing is saying, look, this is very sophisticated system, but operatively, functionally, your vagina needs to be acidic. And so we take the byproduct of microbiome, reacidify the vagina. In between, you're also giving hydration and pelvic floor. So it's really, I think that at every age, when a woman comes to you or to another healthcare professional, it's both because a lot of times the medical side is not really listening.
Hmm.
Oh, vaginismus, go have a glass of water and and wine and
Just relax.
just relax.
Just
Just
relax.
relax.
Just take a bath, have a glass of wine, and just relax.
Just relax. And that's such a missed opportunity because she's young.
Right.
And we haven't been around that long. We've been out since 2021. But and because we're located in a geography which has a lot of sort of different cultural, predilections. So we have ultra orthodox who are not having premarital
Hmm.
sex. And so they all have vaginismus, right? Because they're not
Yeah.
educated about foreplay. So forget
Right.
about that, right?
Right.
So once they're educated with vaginismus, they will come back postpartum 2 years
Right.
later, right? And say, hey, you helped me so much before I conceived, and I'm having pain postpartum. And the same thing, I would say, the our super users at the beginning, we thought that menopausal women would not be so active because there is this inhibition about talking about sex when it's painful and
Yeah.
when you're older, and some couples don't really have a sexful life. So
Yeah.
it's you're stepping on people's toes. But the breast cancer recovery, and I'm saying this because there's a parallel with the perimenopause, because it's been a very short time, a year, let's say, in which the
Mm-hmm.
estrogen is being blocked, their key issue is atrophy of the vaginal opening.
Yes.
Just the opening really has shrinks, and
Mm-hmm.
they're in bed with their partners who've waited for a year, and they're like, oh my God, this is what's worrying me more than recurrence. And
Yeah.
for them, this really does wonders because it's really just working with elasticity, right?
Yeah.
At the vaginal opening. These women also, whether it's scientific or not, are a little bit fearful about taking local estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if they're taking estrogen blockers, it's probably not that relevant to them anyway because it's going to be
Yeah.
blocked. So they were our first menopausal super users, right? They are
Okay.
working with us about 12 weeks a year. And this is also interesting because if you look at estrogen and local estrogen, unfortunately, women don't stick with it
Mm-hmm.
because usually it takes about 8 weeks to kick in. And a woman, think about if you had to be on a diet and you would see no improvement for eight
Yes.
weeks. And so for these women, even with estrogen or without estrogen, they are already working with themselves. They're
Mm-hmm.
already being proactive with themselves with something that's completely natural and not painful to use.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, earlier you mentioned that we need to make sure that we take care of our own selves and our own pleasure and all those. And I'm a huge proponent of that as well, because outside of just stretching and making sure that you're healthy down there, we need to know pleasure. And a lot of us were never taught that our pleasure is important. And sex was just to make babies or just to make your husband happy. And women aren't really craving sex and all of those lies that we were told for so many years. And so I love that this almost kind of breaks that barrier because you are doing
Absolutely.
it for health reasons, you're doing it for pain reasons, but it
Absolutely.
allows you to kind of get into that realm of enjoying yourself, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what do I like, what do I not like, and allowing yourself those pleasure times without a partner, which I think is so important.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And I would even take it a step further. There are so many women that pleasure is such a remote possibility
Hmm.
for them because they're experiencing pain.
Hmm.
And so this is a wellness
Tool.
intimate gel stick, but it
Yeah.
really is. You cannot get to pleasure if you're in pain. And
Hmm.
so even culturally, women who are experiencing pain for multiple reasons. It could be a microbial shift. It
Hmm.
could be chronic because of endometriosis. It could be just dryness, or it could be a muscle issue. They feel that there's something wrong with them, and
Hmm.
then they will shut down.
Hmm.
And the notion of pleasure, right? Or just of well-being. I mean,
Hmm.
and it could be for every woman, it could be slightly different. We just entered Sweden,
Okay.
and to our surprise, their preoccupation is with smell. It's kind of
Okay.
interesting. You mentioned it before.
Yeah.
They're like, I now know in Swedish how to say smelly, smell through the underwear. And really, we're sort of monitoring what the different keywords are that are being used. So culturally, that's very high
Yeah.
up. But I would say that also the pleasure industry, right?
Mhm.
And sex toys,
Mhm.
they assume that every woman can use a sex toy,
Mhm.
right? And I think that you hit it so accurately that the gateway to pleasure
Mhm.
is wellness, right?
Mhm.
And wellness means that if you're engaging with yourself and you're addressing, I mean, imagine if you had a toothache and
Mhm.
you wouldn't brush your teeth, or if you, or obviously go to a dentist. But I would say, itching, burning,
Mhm.
irritation, there's really no prospect of pleasure
Right.
with that. Same with atrophy. And I think and now I'm coming back to the menopausal women, what's interesting about AquaFit with them, which includes us, all three co-founders at this point, is that for many women, they've been educated, even when you have tools for the vagina, it's
Mhm.
sort of shoot and forget, right? I
Right.
insert a tampon and then I take it out and that's it.
Mhm.
I use a gel, maybe I squirt it into my vagina and it leaks. And for women that for all of their years, as you said, they've been taught that this is not theirs to take care of, right?
Mhm.
they can make a change in menopause, which we're seeing
Yeah.
again. It, it was very surprising to us when we went to market. We had a Tupperware party for all of our very successful female women, friends, and we gave out a gel stick to each, and we asked each just to give us feedback.
Mhm.
And out of the 45 women, um, no one called us back. And so when we called them back, they were saying, well, I feel like this is an affront on my sexuality. I think this
Mm.
is really invasive. Like, why are you, I don't really want to deal with this, et cetera, et cetera. So we switched the narrative for menopause and we switched it to just one. What's bothering you? Incontinence, strengthen your
Mhm.
pelvic floor. Irritation, let's rebalance pH. Dryness, we can do that.
Mhm.
And then the subtext is people and they do come around. And
Yeah.
coming back to the fact that we speak to almost every woman, because this is an unknown, no one's seen this, right?
Yeah.
What is this? Like,
It's
what do I
very
do with
unique.
it? Right? They will in direct conversations, they will talk about sex, but it
Mhm.
will be after they ask a few urology related questions
Yep.
or estrogen related questions, and they'll say, well, hey, does it also help with sex? Right.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so, yeah, I think that the pleasure nexus is must go through well-being.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
there is no pleasure without well-being. And so we are
Mhm.
an interlocutor
Mhm.
between that. And I think that just as we're not educated about intimate wellness,
Mhm.
nor were we, right?
Mhm.
I'm not being pejorative. I think that the height of also pleasure is ignoring the fact that it's not so easy for a lot of
Right.
women. And so seeing an advertisement for, the next and best, vibrator is not going to do it for these women,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because the other part of like taking ownership of your body that I think time frame wise that we've been talking about is postpartum. Just because you went to your 6-week visit and you are quote unquote cleared for sex doesn't mean you are ready for sex. Doesn't
Uh,
mean that, and so I think having this tool to say, honey, yeah, I got cleared, but I don't feel ready yet. Let me use this AquaFit tool for the next few weeks
Absolutely.
and then I'll be ready versus I'm going to tolerate pain for the next how many months or years because I gave in too quickly because I'm supposed to. And that goes
So
back into absorbing our own pleasure and taking responsibility for our bodies and our vaginas. And I just think that that's such an important time. I love that this product is for that as well.
and again, I couldn't agree more. I think it's also really there's physical issues, right?
Yeah.
It's if you have scar tissue and your scar tissue is either causing pain at the entry or it's causing a narrowing,
Hmm.
well, you need to massage it and you need to elasticate the tissue and it
Yeah.
will get better. But or same thing, breastfeeding. Like
Hmm.
women who are breastfeeding have low estrogen for the entire period pretty much of their breastfeeding, at least for the
Yeah.
first 6 months, and that means dryness,
Mhm.
irritation, low libido, lots
Yes.
of stuff.
Yes.
so 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 I think that what we're saying is that there are different points in our
Hmm.
lives in which we're engaging in intimate wellness more dramatically, right? So
Hmm.
when we're young, if you have vaginismus or when you're at the beginning of your sexual journey,
Hmm.
postpartum, menopause, perimenopause, post-cancer, 100%. There's not even if it's not a hormonal therapy and you're getting
Yeah.
chemotherapy that's going to disrupt estrogen no matter what.
Hmm.
And why is it that someone's released from cancer care and not be told that these are symptoms and that she's going to face
Right.
them, right?
Right.
So there's that side, but I would also come back to the pleasure and the engagement owner angle and the ownership angle, right?
Hmm.
We would never think that I wouldn't brush my teeth, right? I
Right.
mean, imagine, right, that you would say, "Oh, I have to go to the dentist for them to brush my teeth," right?
Right.
And we are drinking water and we are doing
Hmm.
Pilates and we are eating well and sports and the vagina has its own needs.
Yeah.
And what we've learned in our activity is that what's interesting is that we can modulate it. Right?
Hmm.
It is a complex environment, but the three things, if you do them, you're good to go, right? In terms of the pH, we cannot modulate the microbiome in our
Hmm.
gut very easily. But the microbiome in a vagina is not that complicated. It's about different genomes,
Hmm.
and you can acidify.
Hmm.
So same thing with the muscle.
Yep.
If you don't ignore it,
Right.
then you can work it.
Yep.
And same thing with hydration.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so important. And I just love this conversation because it really is so beneficial for such a variety of women throughout their lifespan. And it's just, yes, talking about sexual health and wellness and pleasure and getting women to own their own pleasure and their own vaginas is so important. Look at it with a or with a mirror. That's so important. Then you can visually see the changes as well and jump on getting help. Going and asking for help. It's so
Absolutely.
important. Please do not be embarrassed. Come tell me all of your vaginal and urinary issues because I like to help. I have tools like this to help. I have medicines and physical therapists and all these things. Don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer alone because we got you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yes.
every woman has herself as well, right?
Yes.
It's not, first of all, I love that. And we can really close with that because it's kind of amazing. But I would also just add that the way that we designed AquaFit is really each gel stick is for 2 weeks because we know that a woman will keep this up for 2 weeks and then
Hmm.
she will come for another 2 weeks and another 2 weeks, and it's different regimens for different groups,
Sure.
but there's not one group that we haven't seen a betterment with. And again, if you're in menopause and you don't have estrogen, you will need to come back, but you're
Right.
coming back because you're now aware of your body. So we always say the first month, we prefer that you work for 2 weeks, 2 weeks straight. So you have
Hmm.
both the hydration and the pH balance and the muscle tonus in
Hmm.
place. And then just come back when you're either feeling a little bit of an itch or a little bit of dryness. And they're working with us for 12 weeks a year. That
Oh,
means not so much of an investment, right?
right. Right.
So, and those are our super users, right? We are the
Yeah.
first generation of women. You're young still, but that will be living 30 years of our lives without estrogen.
Hmm.
Now, and even if we do take estrogen, there's just changes.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot. You were saying at the beginning that menopause is having its day. Right now, I'm hearing it's longevity that's having
Mm.
its day. And in that whole, I would say that we really, as women, should focus on living the best that we can while we're here.
Yes. Good quality living.
Right? Good quality living. And
Yes.
and just for the listeners, 65% of women last year reported that they are having vaginal pain. It could
Mm.
be multiple different things, but 65% of women, it could be itching, it could be dryness, it could be painful sex, usually is
Yeah.
discovered that way, could be something chronic like endometriosis. On all of these things, there is what to do, as you said before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And I think, women just owning it and telling your friends, telling your providers, going and searching online if you need that. In the show notes, we will put links for AquaFit. And so
Amazing.
that you guys can access this amazing tool as well. And I just thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here. This was such an awesome discussion.
It really was, Stephanie. And we love anybody who has their hands up there. So this
Yeah.
is urologist and pelvic floor.
Yes.
And also, I will send you actually a discount code for
Perfect.
your audience. And we
Awesome.
would love to also send you to your clinic so you can
Thank
try.
you. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great week and go have some fun between the sheets. Thank you for joining us and exploring sexual health topics here on Between the Sheets. New episodes are available every Wednesday. Please subscribe and rate our podcast so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to tell your friends, partners, and anyone who will listen about Between the Sheets. Send any comments, questions, or stories to podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. It's all one word, podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and go have some fun between the sheets.